Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. This is Brother Yusuf Chambers here, and I'd like to recommend Islamic Diversity Center as a place that you can rely upon to pass the beautiful teachings and the message of Islam to the people in Newcastle and the whole of the northeast of England. Seeking the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to build sadaqah jariyah for ourselves. So it's very important that we support the dawah and support the transmission of the beautiful teachings of Islam to those who are not yet Muslim in your area. So support the cause, give dawah. Even if you can't give dawah, then you support IDC to give dawah on your behalf in this beautiful month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and give you an accepted Ramadan. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're watching Newcastle Fast FM. This is the Late Show Live, and Ramadan's over, guys, pretty much. This is the last night of Ramadan, so we are going to be concluding, not concluding, this is the second last show. I think we're going to have another one tomorrow, as Eid is going to be on Sunday, inshallah. So, but one of our special guests we've got, what a guest we've got for tonight as well, alhamdulillah. I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. But let me introduce the co-host first. Brother Jamaal, salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Hey T, how come you're down there today, bro? You're supposed to be up here.
I have no idea, bro. Johnny's taking my spot, innit?
Special guest, bro.
Alhamdulillah.
But Jamaal, I'm really looking forward to your health and fitness advice tonight, bro. It's gonna be a good one.
Inshallah, yeah, it would be good to resume because it's been a few days. So yeah, I'm looking forward to throwing something in today, inshallah.
Good. And our other co-host, brother Johnny. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm looking forward to hearing your special advice for the end of Ramadan tonight, inshallah.
Inshallah.
All right, good. And then we have our special guest, special guest, the Gogglmeister himself, the man with the grey beard and the bald head, brother Riaz. Riaz Khan, assalamu alaikum. How you doing, man?
I knew this brother was a gym enthusiast because he's got his guns out. Look at the size of them, mashallah.
Wow, great.
I want to have Ain on you, don't worry, brother. Mashallah.
No, Riaz, you know what? We call him the Muslim CT Fletcher, man. It's all good, bro.
That's because they can't see my stomach, so it's underneath the screen. So that's why.
Your head must look massive, so I know you're in proportion, bro. Big head and my phone is small. So I'm losing it, bro.
No, we've been trying. That's why this month we've all been working really hard. So hopefully this will be the last push just to encourage everyone to do what they can and don't let the end of Ramadan be the sort of the catalyst to sort of falling back. So we're going to discuss that later, inshallah.
Inshallah. Riaz is a bit of a fitness enthusiast himself. I can tell you that he's involved.
I've seen him in person.
We're going to discuss that because he does a number of disciplines of martial arts as well. So we're going to be discussing that as well. I remember when we was in Riyadh, he used to call me Captain Caveman. Yeah, this guy's a funny guy, you know that. And we used to go to the gym, and that's when he used to call me that. What a joker! But anyway,
you should train hard. This brother used to train. Well, you used to train harder than your brother, didn't you?
I still train. Alhamdulillah,
we train harder than your brother in the gym. I remember your brother was a bit laid back while you was really going for it. You know what I mean? Mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Caveman, because you're like a caveman.
Bro, it's all about the exertion and the aggression, bro. That's what it's about. But anyway, I'm sure we're going to touch upon that in today's session, yeah? But, you know, we've got a number of things we want to talk about and want to get some advice for about the end of Ramadan as well. We want to squeeze that in there, get some fitness advice in there as well, inshallah. But let's start off with you, Riaz. Let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself, about your background, who you are, what you do and that sort of stuff.
I was born and bred in Leicester. I've always lived in Leicester. My parents are Pathans, so we've got like an Afghani-Pakistani background. Currently, I'm a teacher. I teach EAP and ESOL. I'm married with 4 kids. I'm in my 50s now. I think I'm the oldest out of you 4, to be honest. Oh, us 3 anyway. So, what else do you need to know? I mean, I wrote a book. A play was made out of that book. I've had my life. I wasn't always a Muslim. I was always, I had a bit of a colourful past until I embraced Islam. Alhamdulillah, at the age of 27.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. There's some good points there we can discuss. We've got a quick comment by Muslim BB. Salam brothers, Ajaz, if you can put on the screen, please, the comment. Salam brothers, sad news that Ramadan is coming to an end, and also Newcastle Fast FM coming to an end too. It's been amazing to hear you guys every night. Muslim BB Jamaal, he's been one of our regulars, hasn't he?
Well, absolutely, it's been a pleasure having him here or her having here and commenting all the time, giving us some support. So it's been amazing, and Jazakallah khair for all of your support.
Yeah, and this is a good opportunity for me to explain that although Ramadan's coming to an end and we make dua and we pray that we can see another Ramadan, but also Newcastle Fast FM, there's discussions about continuing it after Ramadan, but I don't know where that is. But certainly Islamic Diversity Center, the Dawah Center, is going to continue all year round. And this is why we need everybody who's watching this to support the Dawah Center, to support the Dawah by, number one, making dua for us. This is the last night of Ramadan. Please, please, please make dua that we stay sincere and humble and continue to do the work that we're doing. Number two, like and share this link, guys. If you're watching this now, like and share it. Get this out to as many people as you can, so that they can take part in this opportunity of benefiting from tonight's program, but also to donate. And that's the third point: donate. It's so easy to do it. If you haven't, you don't want to miss out on those last rewards, guys. This is your chance. Donate. Text Dawah to 70085, and that will take a £10 donation straight off. If you don't want to do that, go to supportidc.com, make whatever donation you can make, or by PayPal, paypal.me/Islamic Diversity. So, And
what I like, AT, as well is, mashallah, viewers like Muslim BB, we consider you definitely to be a part of what we're doing. And in so being a part of what we're doing, it also means that just taking active action in terms of sharing today's video, maybe commenting, share this live stream, commenting, getting everyone to come over here as well. And that way, inshallah, we can get more support. So that's another thing. You're working with us tonight, inshallah. So, even put some comments on. Let us know how many times you shared it. Let us know some responses, and let's get more viewers on today as well, inshallah.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's make it some big.
Yeah. These brothers here, IDC, there was a problem with the EDL in Leicester a few years ago, and no one could engage with them. These brothers come along, about a good 10 of them, mashallah. And I tell you what, immediately engage with them, start giving them dawah.
Dawah, okay.
I wasn't there that time. I think I dropped you guys off and came back later because I had to do something.
That's
when
right.
I see these guys playing football with them, holding the pads and playing football with them, I thought, wow, what's going on here?
Wow.
All these couple of years before, the community that was in that area could not even engage with these, far right sort of, EDL types. They couldn't engage with them. These brothers came along, bang, straight in there. That's the work of their dawah. So brothers, support these brothers if you can. You need to support these brothers because they're doing a fantastic job, mashallah. I'm not saying that just to big the guy. I'm saying from my heart, from what I saw and the engagement afterwards as well with these guys. These guys are just proper haters of Islam, proper. And now, when these guys came and I engaged with them, they had a different understanding of Islam because of the way they approached them, the way they interacted with them, the way they engaged with them. It was amazing, mashallah. So I had to say that before
Yeah, Jazakallah, bro. I remember Leicester. I remember that area in Leicester when Yusuf called us up and told us what was going on. And we've got experience with the EDL up here. We know how to. We've been engaging with them for many, many years. Many of their members, alhamdulillah, you get your die-hard ones, and they're going to be stuck in the way. Generally, even still.
Oh, AT, you're breaking up a little bit, bro.
Yeah, you are breaking up.
Oh dear.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. When Yusuf called us and told us about it, we said, "Yeah, man, we're gonna come down." We got a crew down, drove down to Leicester, and did our thing, man. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. It was fantastic.
It was a good day, actually. It was a really good day.
We had about 10 bearded
MashaAllah.
brothers.
All right, so
you know what I mean? It was great to see it.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's this is one of the things that I think that's lacking, actually, I'll be honest, is sometimes our community isn't very outward looking, and sometimes they're not very confident in sharing the message or even just being themselves and humanizing Muslims, right? And this is what it's all about. One of the things that we have to do is break the ice by humanizing us, because let's be honest, let's be frank, yeah, we've been dehumanized for the past 20 years at least, all right, from the mainstream politicians, from the mainstream media, through legislation, through, you know, the increase in the far right. So many things have been happening, and the Muslims, we haven't been vocal enough, and we haven't been proactive enough, in my view, that's my view, in changing that narrative. And we've been taking it on the chin. So now it's time. We have to change that. We have to change that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because our younger generation are lost now. And we need brothers like yourself to keep on them, keep giving them dawah, keep encouraging them to be proud of who they are. You know, because when I was a young kid, I wasn't proud of who I was. I mean, it was a lot of racism. And man, I don't know if you was, how old are you, Abu?
Yeah, them were the 70s and the 80s was rough, bro. There was clear overt racism. It wasn't even hidden. There was nothing hidden about it. It was very, very in your face. You know, if you're not the right color, if you're different, if you stand out, you're gonna get it. They wouldn't hold back on any of that.
They wouldn't.
You know, and that's the reality of those days.
And at that time, I was going to a school which was predominantly white, and me and my brother were the only Asian kids in the school, so we got a lot of grief. And in a kind of way, I was kind of ashamed of who I was, you know, because the psychological effect has on kids, bombarded every single day. You this, you that, you this, you're here, you this, you know. And being the only handful of coloured lads in the whole school out of 2,000 lost kids, it was really difficult to, you know, challenge those notions, especially when the two teachers had the same sort of notions about immigrants as well. I mean, it was really a difficult environment to grow up in. I kind of, you know, went astray. I didn't want to be who I was. You know, with the kids these days, I think they're going through a similar thing. With Islam always being bombarded through the media, through education, through the politicians, through the general public. How do they cope with these sort of, you know, with this barrage of, you know, Islamophobia? I mean, you can see kids.
Yeah, well, that's very true. And I think one of the problems is, you know, we had a certain type of environment that we had to deal with. The rules of engagement were different then as well. You know, you didn't have social media, you didn't have the mainstream media spotlight on us like the kids have today. I think the kids actually have it harder today for all of those reasons. Plus, we had overt racism of, you know, being called a Paki or a black this and a black that. We got all of that. The kids today, they still get that. Plus, they get the anti-Muslim sentiment. They get called a terrorist. They get called an Iraqi. The kid's a Bengali and he's getting called an Iraqi, yeah? Because they associate Iraqis with terrorists. And there's so much things going on that, and psychologically, you've got to ask us the question, what is that doing to the young brothers and young sisters? Imagine you're a young sister wearing hijab and going through all of that. Or a young brother who maybe even wants to practice his deen, but getting called all of these things and then getting squared up to as well. And then you got the media on one side, the mainstream media spotlight on one side. Then you got kids in the playground on the other side. And then you've got other people who've got other views and attitudes towards you. And then you're hearing your mother when she's walking into the school being verbally abused every day, right? For wearing a hijab and stuff. That has got to take its toll at some point in terms of the psychological issues and the mental health issues on young Muslims today. I have no doubt about that, you know, because it's the reality we're living in, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, is there a time? I think when I actually started becoming like them, I was accepted, and that's a danger for the kids of today. If they start becoming, they talk about integration. There's no such thing as integration. You either assimilate or you're not part of society. They're talking about I had to assimilate to become like them, to be accepted. Now the kids these days, they have to assimilate as well to be accepted by the general public. They have to basically abandon everything they believe in to become like these, the kids of today. It's a tough test for them, a real tough test for them.
And it's a lost generation. That's the weird thing about it. It's like it's not even about Muslim and non-Muslim kids anymore. It's just a whole generation is like lost and confused, and they don't know whether they're coming or going. There's a huge identity crisis going on with the youth in general. I'm talking about, regardless of what background it is. There's a massive identity crisis. And if you remember the London riots in 2012, that was very telling of what the society is going through right now, because it wasn't just one community that was kicking off. It was young people from different communities who were just going wild, right? Yeah. So it's very telling of what's going on in the society today. Jamaal, sorry, bro, I cut you off. You were about to say something, bro.
Not at all. It's no problem, bro. I mean, I was just really just when you mentioned about the identity crisis and stuff like that, and I was just thinking about the amount of Muslim youth that are involved in youth crime, knife crime, drugs, and this distance from their deen. And I'm just wondering what percentage of those youth have gone that way because of the fact that they're distancing themselves from their deen because they might be ashamed of it. I know a lot of them are attracted to that lifestyle, so it's nothing to do with being ashamed of their deen. But there might be some who are just, obviously just being, kind of like persuaded to go over to those sides and making themselves feel a bit more, a bit more self-esteem or something. So, I'm hoping that we can maybe touch on that as well, in terms of,
definitely,
yeah, how the youth are kind of being, obviously most times now when you hear about someone that's been stabbed or killed or whatever, you're hearing Muslim names. And it's really sad, yeah.
I think
it's not even just Muslim names. It's like in Birmingham, for example. If you remember a couple of years ago, the stabbings that were happening in Small Heath, it was ridiculous because it was Muslims stabbing other Muslim kids, right? And it's like you got your Somali Muslim gang, and then you got your Pakistani Muslim gang, and then you got something else going on here, and then someone else, and then they're all just fighting with each other. It's like crazy that literally we're losing our youth to this. It's literally the situation. It's got that bad. And Johnny, I'm sure Johnny can jump in here as well, because although Johnny wasn't born and brought up in the UK, he still discusses about his identity issues from when he was in Bangladesh. So maybe you want to share a little bit about that as well, Johnny.
Yeah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yeah, before I go into that, bro, I would like to also say, our youths are here. Obviously, they got messed up because of the inferiority complex or whatever you may say. However, we also have that problem, and we also have a problem the media being against us. You know what happened? That, like yesterday, we had a really nice weather in UK, and supposedly people were supposed to have a social distancing. Nobody did that, and obviously people went to everywhere, Southern Beach, in London, in here, everywhere. What happened? Even people got drunk. They actually started fighting each other. Went to the people's house and garden. They messed up, and none of the one media covered that and tell that like this is what they did. But they are telling the Muslims that Muslims should celebrate their Eid on their home. Like, why is like double standard? This is just so disgusting, and no media is actually covering that. This is despicable. This is absolutely despicable. Like
that's interesting, Johnny, that you say that. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, and I agree. It's interesting you said that because our Riaz here, he's I remember this is his words. I'm going to quote him. Yeah, it was his words when we brought him up. He said, "I declare war on the mainstream media."
Wow.
So Riaz was doing these big videos, right? Like calling out the mainstream media. So we called him up to Newcastle. Do you remember that event, Riaz? Yeah,
that was St. James Park. Yeah,
and we did it on. It was after the November attacks in France, in Paris, and we did this event. I think it was called "The Face of Terrorism" or "The Face of Extremism." I can't remember which
terrorism. Terrorism.
Yeah, and then we called Riaz up to do his little slot on the mainstream media and his views on that, and he just absolutely laid into the media. You know, tell us about that, Riaz. Why did you declare war on the media, bro?
Because after that 1 in 5 article with the Sun or Daily Mail, I think it was. No, it was the Sun. I hate the Sun. I hate Daily Mail. I hate those two newspapers. I really hate them with a passion because they have an agenda, and we can see it clearly what the agenda is. But the general public can't see that agenda, but we can because we've got a bit of intellect. And they said that 1 in 5 Muslims supported ISIS. So I made a video and I said, look, so you're telling 6 of us, there's 6 in my family. So I said, you're telling me one of my members of family supports ISIS. And from that moment onwards, I went on one. I just couldn't handle it because every single day we were getting bombarded. Every single day was a negative image of Islam. There'd be one positive story about Islam, and there'd be 20 negative stories about Islam at the same time. So it was
your response video went completely viral, though. It just absolutely went crazy.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's from Allah, it went viral. I mean, Allah worked in various ways, you get what I mean? So it's not me, it's from him, inshallah, you know what I mean? So yeah, it did. And a lot of non-Muslims were saying to me like, well done, it's about time, you guys need to speak out more against the media and stuff, because we seem to be, as a community, we seem to be very, very quiet. We seem to just take on the chin and carry on for some reason. We're not outspoken enough. I don't know why that is.
I think two things from that. Number one, that we're not outspoken enough. I agree to some extent. But the other thing is we don't get the airtime. We don't get the voice, the correct voices being given the platforms. That's the other aspect as well. You'll get your Anjum Chowdhury's, they'll get your, guys who are very vocal and represent a complete extreme minority from our community, and they will give them the loudest voices, but the mainstream voices are never given a platform, not to the extent that we should be getting, and that's part of the problem as well.
The problem is, bro, as a Bengali Pakistani community, bro, when we came over, like very well, like we were so money oriented. We used to think about the business, like Bengali were talking about the restaurants. They didn't care about what the children are going to be like. And same with the Pakistani and India, bro. The problem with the Muslim community in here, we are a minority and we have a problem, so many problems anyway. But we don't help each other. Like that's why the dawah is so important. Nobody is talking. Nobody is actually. We Muslims are not representing ourselves. So obviously somebody else will represent you in a wrong manner. It's not your. This is my responsibility to tell people who am I. If I don't tell, somebody else will describe me in the wrong way, obviously. And obviously, if you see that we don't have a strong media, we don't have a strong journalist, we don't have nothing, bro. I mean, we have some, but it's not like that strong. Like, so that's why, like,
we've got alternative platforms now. I mean, social media has given us to some extent. Like was mentioning, Riaz has got he's making videos, and he gets. I've noticed on all his posts, he gets a lot of comments by a lot of people. Generally speaking, a lot of people watch the video.
How much? Yeah.
We've got alternative media platforms like 5 Pillars and stuff like that, who are giving us the alternative voice, if you like. But I mean, to be fair to our elders, when they came, they did not expect that they would be the community under the spotlight like we are now. They would just, yes, you're right, they came for the dunya reasons and whatever else, and they set up their businesses. They were working hard. They built masajid. They did all the things that they did, but they never expected for the Muslim community to be under the spotlight like we are today. And so that's why they weren't prepared for it, and there was no need for dawah at that time, if that makes sense.
Also, the older generation, their intention was to come here, make money, and go back, not settle here. They ended up settling here, didn't they? Because they saw opportunities for their kids. My father's intention was to come here, make a lot of money, and go back to Pakistan and build a massive house and stay there, and bring all his family back over. I think that's what all our older generation wanted to do. They wanted to come here, make enough money, and go back. But they ended up settling here for some reason. It is what it is. I mean, it's Qadr.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. But so I think there's a couple of good points there. But Jamaal, what's your take on it? Because obviously we can talk about from an Asian community perspective. What about from the African Caribbean communities? What was their story? Because for the Asians, it's pretty much the same. They came over after the Second World War, rebuilt the country. They were given opportunities. A lot of people, their intention was to go back and not stay here. Many of them, in fact, nearly all of them, ended up staying here. But what about from the other communities?
In the Afro-Caribbean community, I think the very first Windrush travelers, immigrants, when they came, obviously they were invited to come over and to take these jobs. So I think it would have been their intention that they are making hijrah. They're coming here to start a new life and to be working here. And obviously, so again, so when other relatives came, they came for the same purposes. So they had homes already sort of set up for them and stuff like that. So especially in my family, that's the experience that I have. That obviously when my mother and others came over, it was to settle here. So I think that generally life was, I don't know, obviously for other sort of ethnic minorities, but for the Jamaicans, exactly, for them it was a case of it's going to be a better life. Obviously the life in Jamaica was not so lavish. So obviously coming over to the UK, having better jobs and stuff like that, that was the expectation. So it was definitely a case of coming over to start a new life, really. So I think it's a bit different.
So it's slightly different then, I guess.
Yeah.
In that regard. Okay, alhamdulillah. And Johnny, why did you come, bro?
I came to, bro, basically I wanted to live life like a Bollywood, bro. That was my only thing. Literally, I'm just being honest. Like I see all my movies. Life in UK is amazing. So that was my thing. As soon as I go UK, I'll live my life. And alhamdulillah.
You believe that the streets are paved with gold, innit, Johnny?
Yeah, bro, absolutely. But the reality is, bro, subhanallah, when life breaks you down, then you realize that life is not what it was made out to be. Because when I came here, then I realized expenses are so expensive, but tuition fees are so high. And on top of that, I have to pay money at the back home. Bro, I was depressed almost. Like, I just didn't know what I'm going to do. You know what I mean?
Remember. Yeah.
SubhanAllah. And as a student, bro, the time that I came, so many people came, and bro, there was no job. Literally, there's no job. You can't find no job. Well, alhamdulillah, I mean, Allah has his own plan, and here I am today. I mean, this is it, bro. I mean, Allah has his own plan. You can only just make your plan. You can try to do your best, and that's your bit. You do your best, and then Allah will execute the plan. That's his job.
Alhamdulillah. Riaz, you know what? I'm really keen to talk about, you mentioned about assimilation earlier on. And your upbringing in Leicester, you've got quite a unique one, because not many people, I mean, obviously we got into fights and we got into, we had to learn to stand up for ourselves and deal with the racism and deal with the identity issues and all of that sort of stuff. But yours is quite interesting because yours is slightly different. You ended up being a hooligan, man. What was that all about? A football hooligan. You ended up being in the firms and stuff. Tell us a little bit about that. And I've never ever heard of an Asian joining a football firm, by the way. Yeah. So Leicester, this is something that is quite unique.
No, well, Leicester was unique. I mean, there was a couple of Asian lads already doing it before. There was 2 Sikh guys and a Pakistani guy who were a little bit older than me that was already in the mix, so were already doing the hooliganism stuff. Me and my brother joined up because we liked the camaraderie, the notion that there was a togetherness. There was this like I wouldn't say brotherhood, but yeah, like a brotherhood, if you get what I mean. It's like you belong to something. It's that belonging. Because at school we never belonged to anything, because it was always on the fringes of everything. Because there was skinheads, and there was the punks, there was rude boys, there was the grebos. I don't know if you know what grebos are. Heavy metalers, long hair, smelly jackets, And as being Asians and one black lad as well, I think there's one black lad in the whole school. Andy, his name was. We was on the fringes. We didn't belong to anything. So we had no identity. We didn't have a sense of identity. But with this casual thing, this football hooligan, we saw black lads, white lads, and Asian lads, and we thought, hold on, mate, what's going on? They're all united under some. We didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was about, because I saw the way they dressed at first. Group of lads walked past me in a shopping mall, 1983, way before when you guys were born. I don't know about this brother here, but I know definitely. Yeah. So, led by a black lad, he was a leader. He was a Rasta. And they're all dressed really smart. And there was all these little white kids following him. And I thought, hey, what's going on here? These white lads are following this black lad. You didn't see that. It was in those days a lot of racism. There was either black gangs and there was Asian and black lads stuck together. And there's white guys that used to, stick together. You got the odd Irish lad that used to be with us lot to fight against the racists. But to see a black lad leading a group of white guys I was in awe. And the way they dressed, I thought, I've got to be a part of this. There's something special about this. So I started dressing up. They wear a certain uniform. In those days, there were subcultures. You had the punks with the spiky hair and the, pink Mohicans, and you had like I mentioned before, then you had the goths with the black leather jackets and, the black makeup and whatever on the lips and whatever. And you had the B-boys and the hip-hop boys, with the shell suits on, spinning on the backs and stuff. I like that culture, don't get me wrong.
Break dancers, yeah?
Break dancers, yeah. They come a little bit later, but the B-boys.
I remember that.
Yeah, this is 83, 84. So I never belonged to it. So I didn't belong. The Pakistani community really, there weren't that many of us in Leicester, to be honest with you. And they were really sort of studious and they're really sort of, I wouldn't say backward, but they didn't have the, what's the word I'm trying to think of? They didn't have a future sort of, they didn't have no foresight into the future. If you get what I mean, they just wanted to go to work, in a factory, come home, eat chapati and go to sleep, get an arranged marriage, and that was their life. And I didn't want that. So I wanted to be different. So so I saw people lads and I wanted to become like them. So I started dressing like them and I got involved in that culture. So you could not integrate. Like I said, you had to assimilate, you had to be like them, you had to walk like them, you had to talk like them, you had to act like them, you had to be them to be accepted. So a lot of Asian kids were drawn to this casual culture. There was a few Pakistani lads, few Sikh lads. There's about 20 of us in total. So we got accepted. I mean, there's a lot of racism initially, but then this movement, this casual movement, broke down a lot of racial barriers. You know what I mean? Because no politician done this before, no religious leader, no think tank. It was this casual movement that broke down these barriers of racism in Leicester, anyway, and in Birmingham and other places like that, big major cities.
Well, Leicester's unique because it's a very diverse city. Anyway, it's known to be the most diverse city in the UK, apparently, right? Leicester is very, very unique in that sense. And if it was going to happen anywhere, it would have been Leicester, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, Leicester is the best place in Europe, to be honest with you, for Islam as well, I reckon. To be honest, that's my opinion. That's my honest opinion, because we don't get the grief that you get in other cities as much as, places like, for example, Nottingham down the road, the Muslim community get a lot of stick in Nottingham. Birmingham has a lot of problem with drugs and crime, and it's just rife with it. Leicester has that, don't get me wrong, but they also have that element of Islam as well. We have a good little movement of Muslim kids here trying to become, trying to better themselves. We have Islamic schools here. We have, loads of madrasas and stuff. But Leicester, yeah, it's unique. But people say we integrate with society in Leicester, but we don't. We live side by side. We have our little areas. Like you have one area full of, Somalis. We have one area full of Gujaratis. One area full of Hindus. One area full of, Afro-Caribbeans.
Would that not be considered ghettoization then? Sort of the whole little ghettos.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does that work then? Does that not cause more problems because everybody sort of isolating themselves almost?
Sometimes it does, but not all the time, because you've got Muslims that work in the council, Muslims that work in hospitals, Muslims that work in schools. So we're constantly interacting. So, it has that benefit, but also had the, because a lot of when Muslims congregate in an area, the locals move out because we start building masjids, we start, we look at different, we look different. You see a lot of niqabs, you see a lot of shura kamises, you see these big beards, and the locals sort of think, oh my God, we need to get out of this area. They get a bit paranoid and they leave. So that becomes, like you say, it's due to just, I don't know, it just happens. People just move out of the areas and go to different areas. It's done by, it's not done by purpose. It's just the way it is.
Okay, so basically your journey from, being in a school like that and then joining the firms because of all the unity, I guess, that you found with that breaking the barriers of racism and dealing with some of the issues. So what happened next then? Why did you leave that then? Why did you go from being part of a firm, obviously the football, the casuals, the clothing, all that culture and lifestyle that you get with that, and includes the fighting as well, I'm assuming, right? Yeah. Between the different supporters and fans. Mm-hmm. Why did you go from there? And then I'm assuming the next step was practicing Islam, or was there something in between that?
There was something in between that. The rave scene came along. So instead of fighting, we started dancing instead. But that was just, it's all, the the football scene was all like a natural adrenaline, and the rave scene was not as an artificial buzz. It was a completely different sort of lifestyle altogether. So we used to go to all these places where I wouldn't recommend people to go to. You know, because it's just full of sins and full of vice and it's full of evil. It is evil. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and you're intoxicated with drugs, just intoxicated with drugs, doing things that you're not supposed to do. And it can mess you up psychologically as well. People don't think they can, but it can. And we jumped on that scene because we got sick of the football scene because every week we were doing the same thing. It became repetitious. Violence, violence, violence. As you get older, when you're young, when you're in your teens, you go through you have like a lot of testosterone, a lot of energy, and you need to release it. And that was a way of venting our frustrations at football matches. And we was anti-establishment as well. We was against the government. We didn't like Margaret Thatcher. She was in power. And there was no youth clubs. There was nothing. She was predominantly racist as well. She used to give the ethnic minorities a hard time. You got Toxteth riots. You had the riots all over England because of her. You know, because the policing, she gave police so much powers. So we was anti-establishment. After 6 years of doing this, we got sick of the violence. You grow up. You come out of this sort of phase of this temporary insanity, I call it. When you're a teenager, you do crazy things. You go through temporary insanity. So when you come out of that, you realize, hold on a minute, I can't do this forever. So then we jumped onto the next subculture. This is before Islam even came into the picture, because when I was at madrasa, when I was a young kid, I used to get battered by the Mubisab. You know what I mean? Bluebeard and Blackbeard, we used to call them. Redbeard, there was 3 of them: Bluebeard, Blackbeard, and Redbeard. They used to batter us. They never told us the beauty of Islam. They used to just make us read Quran. You make one mistake, you know what I mean? You put in the corner, do the murgi, you know the murgi, the chicken. We have to eat. Oh my days! You know, every single day we used to hate going madrasa, and I started hating. You still do it, yeah?
I've heard a lot about that.
I bet you can do it. I don't know. Show us.
No, I think I want to say in that case, like, you know, this is very common in Asian, in Bangladesh. They will send you to the maktab. If you do mistake, they're like, bang, and that's one of the reasons that, like, so many kids, they become the memorizer of the Quran, and they have no love at all in their heart for Islam, because they get so much torture by the hands of their teachers, and they learn. They were told that this Quran is a mercy. How can this Quran be a mercy when I'm getting so much torture as like 5 years old, 7 years old? SubhanAllah, this model of the memorizing of the Quran is so wrong. It's not the right way to put Islam in your heart. And they just leave the Islam. They have no respect for the Islam. They have no respect for the Quran. They memorize, and then when they become like an adult, like a teenager, they just live all together. But they don't care. And that's just so shameful. Muslim community need to reassess so many things. We need to, as a parents, like, we need to think about that as well. But this is just so, it's not right. How can you love Allah and His Messenger when you're being tortured by, like brutally like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
man,
crazy.
it's very true. And essentially, what it is, it's association, right? So you start forming these associations with negativity with Islam, essentially, and with the Quran. That's what happens, and that's where you find many people, like Johnny said. It's very, very true. Riaz, we've got a question here by Sister Hafsa. Yeah, I think this would be a good one for you to answer at this stage because you've been talking about it. How can we prevent the youth from wanting to fully assimilate, especially when those around them are wanting to do bad? How could we help those in school where perhaps deen is not their main priority in their mind? How can we make them proud of their identity, culture, and religion in a way that they will understand and feel that they can go into a society being their own self, devoid of negative influence? What's your advice?
It's a good question, that is, because the youths are surrounded by so much social media, Instagram and Snapcrap and whatever it is that they watch and stuff. So they're getting this barrage of social media. So it's really hard to hold on to something. Don't forget, the Prophet said to nearest me that the deen would be so hard that you can't hold it in the hand of the hot coals in your hand. That's how hard it'd be to hold on to the deen. For kids these days, I think we need to teach them Islam, the beauty of Islam, teach them stories of the Sahaba. You know, how beautiful the Sahaba, the companions. If you read the companions to the kids and tell the true stories, not these fantasy stories that you hear now. Like, you know, when I was a kid, I grew up reading Marvel comics. I sort of fantasize about the Hulk and Spider-Man and Nova and all these characters. The kids need to be taught more about the Sahaba and what they did, and how beautiful their character were, so they can feel that sort of sense of they belong to something, a bigger picture. You know what I mean? That's what I believe. Anyway, I mean, we try to teach our kids about the Sahaba all the time, but sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But they need to know more about the Sahaba, how they lived their lives, and look at the young Sahaba as well. There were Sahabas that were in the teenagers, they were youths, and what they did. Yeah. They could be a massive influence on the kids these days, and show them that what's the word I'm trying to think of? Sorry, it's gone out of my head now. Show them that pride and that love for the Sahaba and for Islam. That's the only way that's the only way we can do it.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of things that I think the parents have a role to play, but ultimately the young people have a role to play as well. They need to really have a level of izzah and honor in their deen. Basically, that's what it comes down to. There's another comment by Ivan Humble. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. A great guest. Riaz is an inspiration. Ivan's a legend, man. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. If you don't know about Ivan Humble, guys, you gotta watch some of his stuff. Very, very inspirational himself. His story from being from the far right to reforming himself is inspirational, to say the least. Unbelievable.
Amazing.
It is really good.
The kids need role models. Look, we've got some good role models out there now. We've got Guzzy Bear, Guz Khan, right? He's openly Muslim. He don't care. And he's funny, and the kids love him. So we need role models.
And he rocks that beard well as well, bro, yeah?
Yeah, he's not ramping. He don't care, you know what I mean? That's a great thing about him. We've had more role models like that in media and in the, so people are openly Muslim, they don't care. That gives the youth encouragement to become, more openly Muslim. So we need more role models like him. We've got Tez Ilyas as well from up north, from up your ends, well, Blackburn, near enough your ends. He's a good role model.
He's miles away.
Well, it's north for me. Anything, it's north for me. But the thing is, got good role models like. If you've got more role models like that in the in the social media and in the mainstream, that encourages youth to become more attached to Islam, to become more proud of who they are. In my day, we didn't have none of those role models. We had Mulbisat, Redbeard, Blackbeard, and Bluebeard.
Jamaal, what about you, bro? What's your advice in terms of answering this question for the youth, and assimilation and being proud of their identity, culture, religion, all that sort of stuff?
I completely agree with Riaz. I used to go around to there's a particular school called Shakhsiya, based in Tottenham and Slough, and they used to invite Dean Riders to come over to speak to the kids. And there was one occasion that I went to visit the kids, and I had this little thing with them. It was really good, actually, mashallah. What I did is the children were aged between it was a couple of years, so I was 7 till maybe 9 or 10. So I always say to them, for example, what's your favorite superhero? And then someone would get up and say, oh, Superman or something, or Spider-Man. So I'd say, okay, stand up. And I say, go over to the wall over there. I say, right, go on, climb up the wall like Spider-Man. Right? Come on. And they were sort of trying to, everyone started laughing at them. And I said, okay, Superman, okay, come on and fly. And I said, look, these are not the real superheroes. And then we sort of went into that, and then, picked up a couple of Sahabas. And I think it's the way you tell the children and the way you teach them about the Sahabas, which will make them actually want to aspire towards them. We obviously, there are some amazing accounts of the feats that they did, but we don't actually, we don't teach the children in the way that we think maybe they should be taught. And I think if we did do it in a certain way, then I think it will become much more attractive. And sometimes, like you mentioned, for example, Guz Khan, Riaz, and Guz Khan, he's openly Muslim. However, he fits very comfortably into the other sort of the other life, if you like. I mean, because he can mix with people very, very well. I've seen some of the programs that he makes as well, and obviously he's quite free with his speech. He can be very flowery in his speech as well. Now, whether that be a good thing or a bad thing, obviously we know that because he's openly Muslim, maybe the children will be attracted to that and they will feel more confident and proud to be Muslim. But I think in terms of the way that we introduce the children to the Sahabas, and they can understand the greatness of the Deen, the greatness of the predecessors, and do it right. And even if you do it in a way where maybe you animate them in a certain way, like how you'd animate Marvel, spend money you know, do like a Marvel type thing for the children so they can understand. I want to be like him, you know what I mean? And so I think that's what it is. And children can relate to it if we do it properly, if we kind of make them understand how attractive it really is.
I mean,
and I think multimedia comes in is very important as well, Jamal, because obviously that's your background, and creating good quality videos and you know, even movies, right, which celebrate this and can capture the imagination. The youth today, not many people read books no more. Let's put it that way. It's more quick videos, watch a movie and something. You know, if we can get the standard of quality right, I think we can have a big impact on that as well.
I agree.
And also, 80, bro, I want to say something about the, like, let's face the reality in here. The couple of things that as for the children to have role model, the few things need to take into consideration. As a Muslim society, we need to really assess, as I said, like, when me as a parent sending my kids to the madrasa or maktab to learn Islam, and they learn everything about Islam, when they come home, they don't see Islam. That's a problem. That's another problem, bro. I have to really, really honest. I'm telling my son to learn and not to lie, but they don't see me praying. They see me lying. That doesn't help. That's just you have to understand that for my children, I am the role model. Let alone the Sahaba comes later on. They will come. That's fine. But your son will see you day and night. You can talk about Umar bin Khattab every single day, his greatness of life. If he doesn't see you doing anything great, that's not going to work. At the same time, another thing is, bro, very important to understand that teenager, this age is very dangerous age. No matter how much you can give them lectures, they don't like to hear lectures, bro. Especially the society they are living in here, 2020, bro. You can tell them about the Sahaba all day, all night. By just this age is like that. So that's why the parents, when they grow, make them grow up. It's very important to become the role model, and that's how you assess them. And Muslim communities need to get together that we have something amazing to be proud of. Sometimes we just don't tell them. We're so shy at the same time. Like, we want them to be engineer, doctor. That's fine. That we need to do that. But at the same time, be the role model. Show them the greatness of that. Just don't just say, like, go to the mosque and become Umar bin Khattab. It doesn't work like that.
No.
That's true. You know, I remember listening to Imam Siraj Wahaj back in the days. Yeah, what a legend he is in terms of the pioneering for the dawah. And he made a good point. He was talking about his own kids. He was sharing a story about his own kids. He said, you know what? We have to instill, you know, iman and the love of the deen in our children from a young age and make them feel comfortable and good about that. He said, but, you know, we focus so much. Imagine every parent now, right, who spends so much time and effort on educating their children, putting in their heads that they've got to be doctors, engineers, professionals, or whatever. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. But imagine they put the same amount of effort on their deen, the encouragement, the time that is spent, the education, the investment in the education, money-wise as well, to making sure that their children get that. And he said, and Imam Siraj came out with this classic line. He said, I'd rather have my child a garbage collector which has good iman than someone who's a doctor and has a lot of money and has lost his iman, right? Or lost his Islam. And this is, and again, a caveat or disclaimer, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a garbage collector or anything like that, but you get the point that I'm trying to make here, yeah? That the iman of our children is more important than their jobs and professions and whatever else that we focus on. And I think this is an important thing that people need to understand in terms of when they're doing, coming back to the multimedia thing, Jamal, you know, a lot of people are raving about this, and, you know, they're talking about the Ertugrul series, and, you know, and one beyond that is the Omar series, right? The one that came before that, the NBC one. Yeah. And this is the type of quality, they call it the Muslim Game of Thrones, right? That's the level of quality we're doing. Yeah. But imagine, still, even though the quality is good, it's in another language. It's subtitled.
Yeah.
Where's the English versions of these?
Yeah, absolutely good point. I mean, these are very good points because Ivan Humble, for example, he just made another comment saying he agrees that children need to see their parents as role models rather than the YouTubers and stuff. But the thing is, which is absolutely, it's very, very, very true, because ultimately a child, you know, obviously they see their father as the main sort of direction in their life, like the main sort of aspiration that they should be heading towards. But still, the attraction of Hollywood and the glitz and the glamour in terms of like the films, Marvel and so on. It's very fantastical, isn't it? So, and it really does appeal to a child, and that's why there is that struggle, there is that conflict between my dad is the greatest, right? But yet still, they still love Spider-Man, they still love Batman, they still have all these characters. Do you understand? So that's why it's a really good point what you made there, AT, that for example, these programs like Ertugrul and Omar series, it really, but the only problem with that maybe is that I think it was probably like attracting the older generation though. They're the ones that are like, wow, yes, I've just watched Ertugrul, and I feel like they know it's not sort of based on all facts, but still there's something about it that made them feel great. So we need something like that, but that's going to appeal to younger children. And maybe they can sit and watch it with their dad, and their dad can sort of like put a bit of context into it, so they can still, you know, look to their father, the ultimate role model, and you know, understand that he's the one that's piecing it all together, making sense of it for them, and teaching them, you know, the facts behind it. And I think that's what makes it, you know, that's great. But yeah, there's no budget for things like that here in the UK.
People don't invest in it either. This is the point. You know, we've got brothers who want to who've got skills, who have got passion. Brothers who we know, Jamaal, who want to make like these blockbuster style movies and media, but no one wants to invest in it. You know, there's no capital for it. You need money for this sort of stuff, right? So, and the impact from a dawah point of view, I think can be huge. I really do think it could. You know, we've got a couple of the comments. Ivan Humble says, "Thank you for the kind words, brother." Yeah, man, Ivan, we've got to get you up to Newcastle, man. We've got to get you doing some programs with us in the future. Maybe do a Riaz Ivan show or something like that. Yeah. Rashid Ahmed, he says, "Come on, Jazzy, get with the program, bro. Get the comments on there. Each child has a way of being taught. However, one thing for sure is to encourage curiosity." Yeah, no doubt about that. That's basics. Yeah. Hafsa comes with, "I too just want to add that the environment that someone is raised in has a huge influence. I have had friends that can't understand why I love Islam so much, but after talking to them, I've realized that in their upbringing and culture has been used in a negative way and been put under the umbrella of Islam. And they were always forced to do things without their parents giving them patience, reasoning, and understanding. When they wanted to practice, it was almost like PTSD from when they were." Okay, yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Sister Gigi, she says, "Assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillah, I think Islamic schools have improved from our days." I think this is in response to you, Johnny, yeah? "I remember seeing violent teachers just because someone questioned the teacher, and many of those students later went off track because Deen was shown to be violent and had no meaning because questions were not allowed. Today, many places are teaching our children with meaning and answering questions of the youth, and it really helps plant love for the Deen." Yeah, I've noticed that as well, actually, with a lot of the madrasas and Islamic schools, for sure. They have changed their approach a lot. I think they were forced to as well, but certainly they have a much better approach to teaching that. Yeah, teaching Islam. Yeah, so Riaz, you know, getting back to the point from what you were talking about, moving over to practicing Islam and stuff like that. You obviously wrote a book about your life as a hooligan. It's been dramatized into a play now. Are we expecting a blockbuster movie, bro? What's going on, man?
If Jamaal can get the readies, yeah.
We can work on it.
We should, you know. I think it'll be inspirational. It'll be a really good movie to make. Yeah.
The good thing about the play, the Curve Theatre where it was shown, was basically, they said they've never had an audience like that in their life. In the 10 years they've had plays running, they said never had a diverse audience like that ever. They had young, old, able, disabled, black, white, brown, rich and poor, all gathered to watch this play about me being a naughty boy to embracing Islam at the end. It was dawah right at the end.
Brilliant.
You know, you have to put that dawah, you have to say how it changed my life completely because of Islam. That has to be in there. What's the point in doing the play? What's the point in writing a book if you're not going to mention what changed you? I mean, I wrote the book initially to educate the EDL because there was recruiting on terrorists to fight against the Muslims. And I thought, I can use my past experience to educate these Ivan types. He's probably listening right now.
Ivan type, yeah.
Ivan types, yeah. And alhamdulillah, some did respond to me and said, look, we didn't know Muslims were, you know, want to be part of Britain and wanted to, you know, we thought you guys were just a fifth column. So, you know, Some were educated by it, but obviously it's hard work. You still have to keep working on them because some are not convinced. You have to do. I think nowadays, as Muslims, you have to do actions more than speaking. In the old days, a given dawah was table, books, talk about deen, come here, let's talk about Islam, do the debates, and have that comparative religion conversation. Now it's about actions. Actions speak louder than words. Like you guys, the IDC, I'm coming back to you guys. I always refer back to you guys because you've been an inspiration for us in Leicester. You actually go out into the community of non-Muslims and do things, and that's your dawah. That's what you call dawah. You know what I mean? Like when you help the elderly when the snow came. Remember the snow thing when you all start shoveling in the snow? That was fantastic. And you went to the hospitals with your superhero outfits on, Batman and Robin and whatever you was wearing. I think you was Robin. I think no, you was Captain Caveman, weren't you?
Captain Caveman. A lot of people that's going to go over their head, because that's an old school cartoon. Yeah, a lot of people don't remember that and don't know what that is.
I don't know what it means.
Captain Caveman is the guy who used to have the long hair and used to walk around with a club just bashing stuff, right? That's what Caveman is, right? But yeah, so I think
going to hospitals and touching the kids' hearts and then watching the nurses and watching the doctors and watching the staff interact with you, I thought that's just fantastic. That's dawah. That's amazing dawah. So we've shifted from the tabletop dawah to doing actions. You know what I mean? I think that's more important because that's what the British people want to see us do. They want to see us interacting and engaging with the general public. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I think that's the better way of giving dawah.
I think that it has to be a holistic approach. That would be my view. That we have to have the speaking, the talking, the conversing, and then we have to have the actions as well. So we talk the talk and we walk the walk. So we show Islam in our practice. That's for sure. And I think the important thing is about having those conversations. It's based upon building relationships. Okay, you can't just speak to random people and then expect them to understand your point of view without having a relationship there first. Right? So you've got to, or building up a relationship while you're doing that. And this is where you're going to have the most impact. And when people, like I say, I always use this term, when you humanize Muslims again, because let's be frank about it, the Muslims have been dehumanized, right? Yeah. Because of the way that we've been portrayed, the way that people view us, the perceptions that they have. And sometimes the Muslims don't do themselves or some Muslims don't do the rest of us any favors either by behaving in really, really inappropriate and, might I add, un-Islamic ways, which is why they're involved in criminality and sexual grooming and whatever else that they're involved in. It's because they've moved away from Islam, essentially, or the practicing of Islam, and certainly moved away from the Sunnah. So this gives ammunition to those. So really, it's the solution is coming back to the Sunnah in order to change those perceptions, but with good manners. And I think the good character is so important to have as part of our dawah, as well as being direct, because we shouldn't shy away from having open conversations. If we believe Islam is the truth, which we do, we shouldn't be shy to discuss that as well and to explain that you got to sometimes distinguish between what Islam teaches and the behavior of some Muslims. You got to make that distinction sometimes for people to understand that. But there's a couple more comments come in. Rashid Ahmed says, wisdom is better than knowledge. You can have all the world's knowledge and still be a fool, or you can be a poor man with a lot of wisdom and not talk. And by pure actions alone, people and your children will respect you and be encouraged. For Allah gives knowledge to whomever He wills. Get children to learn all 99 names of Allah and think about the creations on the planet and outside the planet. Let them think and become convinced that Allah actually exists. People's iman gets weak. I don't know why these comments are cutting off, but yeah, I agree. I think it's both things. You have to have knowledge. Knowledge is the foundation for your actions, because without knowledge, you're going to not know how to worship Allah. You're not going to know how to practice your deen. So knowledge is the foundation here. But with knowledge comes action. You have to have both. You can't have one without the other, essentially. Our friend Ivan's back, and he says, trouble for many of us back in the day, we saw Anjum Chowdhury as the spokesperson for the Muslim community. He was the go-to Muslim for media. I became knowledgeable of his interpretation of Islam since learned different on my journey. Yeah, that's very true. We mentioned that right at the beginning. Unfortunately, the extreme minority get the loudest voices on the mainstream media platforms. And that's why I think, Riaz, I think I agree with you in the sense of, I genuinely think there's a propaganda out there. There's an agenda out there, which is to clearly, put negativity on the Muslim community. And we're not the first community, by the way. Let's just make that clear. The Muslims are not the first community to be under the spotlight and seen as the bad guys, right, of society. I remember growing up in the 80s and 90s where the black community were the bogeyman. They were the bad guys, right? Everything was linked to criminality and linked to stop and search, and they were the drug dealers. They were the bad guys on the block, right? Prior to that, in the 70s, it was the Irish, right? Yeah. Who were old enough. They were the bad guys. They were the community who were constantly under the spotlight, you know? So the Muslims aren't the first, so we're probably not going to be the last, but 20 years is a long time, guys, to be under the spotlight, because that's literally a generation, right? Yeah. That's my oldest son, who has since he's opened his eyes to the world, been born in this world, has only had negativity about him, his tradition, his culture, his religion, and his identity being called into question. Literally his whole life, right? So the point is that, I think it's the platforms and the voices that we need to start having. And that's why, honestly, Riaz, I love your videos. I think they're really, really needed. They're really important. It gets the message out there that we need. And you have a lot of people from other communities who watch that. Obviously, you get your negative comments. And how do you deal with all the negativity and stuff, though, bro?
Education, be polite to them. If they keep pestering and become abusive, I block them.
Right.
It gets to a point where you can't convince somebody, and they have that negativity, they keep barraging. And then you think, you know what? I've said what I said, and people have spoke to them, and I just block them. I just get rid of them, because it gets too much sometimes. They become abusive. Then you get I get private messages. I had death threats at one point, but alhamdulillah, I don't get them as much as I used to. So let's just block them. You know what? Because you don't need that negativity. You're trying to bring positivity to a Facebook page, for example, and you want people to engage. I want to be open debate, and I want people to debate, because dialogue is the most important thing at the moment. We have to ask those questions, that the uncomfortable questions. We have to ask them. If we don't ask those questions or answer those uncomfortable questions, there'll always be that thing where they think, okay, the Muslims are silent about these issues. That means they agree with it. When we don't agree with it, because it's haram. All the things that the Muslims do out there, which are completely haram, like the grooming stuff and the drug dealing and the terrorism, it's all haram. And if we don't have dialogue with the communities out there, they're going to think, no, our silence is, what's the word for it? Our silence is I forgot the word now. What's the word? Our silence is when you agree with it. I forgot the word now.
Say again?
Our silence is
silence is approval.
Consent.
Silence approval or silence consent.
Yeah, consent, yeah. Our silence is our consent for these actions. So with Facebook, I do what I do, and then obviously I get people also engaged in that, kind of defend my point of view as well. And most of them are non-Muslims, so it kind of makes those people look a bit idiotic. But when they start abusing, I get rid of them.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think that's
80, bro. I think we have only a few hours for the last Ramadan. This is the most important night and for the Ramadan. So would you like to say something about that, bro? Like,
yeah, man. Let me get these
finishing, bro. Yeah.
Way, then we can wrap it up on a note on that, inshallah. So, Dina has put on there, to tell you the truth, many people are Muslim only on paper, not in real life. There's probably some truth to that. I think the Muslims need to educate themselves on what Islam is. They need to understand what the Sunnah is. They need to start practicing what the Deen teaches them to do. And and I'm confident that if Muslims start practicing the Sunnah properly, they would represent the Deen in a better way. I'm confident of that. Sister Hafsa says it's also important for our children that we remind them to do their own research, to come up with their own conclusions. So when they are in the real world, if they read something they don't feel is right, they won't believe it anyway. Yeah, knowledge is key here. And Dina comes back with, I traveled around the world with different people and color, but nobody's treated me as Muslim more bad than Muslim by name only. That's unfortunate and that's sad. May Allah forgive those people.
There's a lot of truth in that.
Guys, them. Yeah, subhanallah, that's a very sad situation. Again, it comes back to education, knowledge, practicing what you've learned, putting into action what Islam teaches, and being a Muslim, how a Muslim should be. That's what it comes down to, in the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So yeah, we're going to wrap up the show now. I think there's one thing that I want to just mention in terms of, because we'll be back tomorrow night, and tomorrow night we've got one of the sheikhs coming on who's going to give us a little reminder about what we should have done in this Ramadan, how we should approach next Ramadan, and how we should prepare for Eid as well, the Sunan for Eid, especially with this current crisis. So we've got a sheikh coming on from Coventry who will be joining us, inshallah. But just a little something to finish off with, I guess, for today's show. It's some advice that Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah gave, and he said, he was talking to his students, and he said, "Oh, my brothers, conclude the month of Ramadan by reopening to Allah, the Exalted, from His disobedience and returning to Him by doing that which pleases Him." So leaving that which is things which are disobedient to Allah, and then coming back to things which are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said that because at the end of the day, every person has mistakes and deficiencies. That's the nature of all of the children of Adam. They all make mistakes. Even the best of us, we make mistakes. And those who repent are the ones who are the best from amongst us. So repentance is such an important aspect of our religion. No matter how bad you've been, no matter how much sin you've done, no matter how little you've done in this month of Ramadan, how many even sins that you've committed in this month, always return back to Allah in repentance and making tawbah. It is one of the ways in which you actualize tawheed, actually, right? And then the Shaykh continues and he says, Allah has encouraged in His book, and the Prophet ﷺ has encouraged in his word, to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to repent to Him. And as Allah says in the Quran, He uses the verse in what verse is it again? Let me try and recall what Surah Nur. I think it's Surah Nur. He says, and all of you without exception repent to Allah, O believers, that you may be successful. And that's deep, yeah. That's the verse of the Quran which really sums it up nicely, that tawbah is so important for us. No one is free from sin. No one is free from falling short, whether it's in this month or outside of this month. So we have to try and improve ourselves. And one of the ways in doing that is constantly making tawbah. When you do something wrong, turn back to Allah. Only Allah is the one who can fix your affairs, essentially. Yeah. So is that okay for you, Johnny, bro?
Yeah, bro. Alhamdulillah. I mean, of course, but it's for everyone, bro. Subhanallah. We have only one or 2 hours in our hand, and like you said, bro, like Subhanallah, our Prophet said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like the actions are judged by the khawat in the ending. So the Ramadan has ended. Doesn't matter how good that you started, how productive you've been at the beginning of the Ramadan. It's all matters like how you ending the Ramadan. That's so important. And this Ramadan potentially could be my last Ramadan, because I don't know if I'm gonna get there in the next Ramadan. So since I have another day in my hand, if I may have, then I have to make sure that I do my best. Turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says like He will accept you no matter what you have done. And this is so important, because I was doing some what's called notes on there, like subhanallah. And then one of the thing, I'm just gonna say shortly, our Prophet says that some people will be doing so much of good, the people of Jannah, and until there will be like one hand is spent just between them and the paradise. And in that time, they will do an action of hell, and they will be end up in being in hell. So that's why you have to always check your intention, and you have to see like what I'm doing the last time. This is the last few nights of Ramadan. Beg Allah to guide you, because it is the end of the day. You only can try. The tawfiq, the ability of doing good, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have to beg Allah the strength from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do good for His sake. And this is the best things that we can do, begging Allah's mercy.
Okay. Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. So asking Allah for guidance and making tawbah. Great, brilliant. That complements it quite nicely, actually. Jamaal, bro, it's time for your health and fitness advice, bro. You've been missing in action for a number of shows now. You're not getting away with it tonight, bro. You got to give us some good, drop some gems on us tonight, bro.
Okay, bro. Well, look, I was wondering if anyone was actually paying any attention, but our brother Jazz was saying that he's actually bought some kit now and he's been, doing some stuff, mashallah. So what it is obviously we're coming to the end of Ramadan now, and some of you have been sitting there watching all of these shows and listening to the health advice and thinking, yes, I'm already doing stuff, so it's fine. Others have been sitting there, and these are the ones that I was really focusing on. Others sitting there saying to themselves the same thing is, I know I need to sort something out. I know I need to start to get fit. I know I need to start getting healthy. So my disclaimer throughout the whole month has been, I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not a specialist. I'm just someone who's on the journey of trying to get fit, and I'm just taking everyone with me as much as I can, inshallah. So we're coming to the end of Ramadan now, right? And so those of you who actually did some training and exercise in Ramadan, you would know this is the hardest time to do it. This is a time where you're fasting, so you need to preserve as much energy as you can. So you'd be exercising at the last hour maybe before it's time to break fast, and you can drink your water and so on. But now Ramadan is over, there's no time for complacency. Now is the time you're going to have your full energy. You can train any part of the day. So whatever you do, just maintain it. Doesn't matter how small it is, just create a pattern. And once you create that pattern, it means that even if you come off for a few days, whether it be by injury or something like that, or because you're tired, you'll be gagging through it. You'll be like, I can't wait to get back onto it again. And you'll miss that feeling, that sensation of having a little bit of workout, starting to sweat, starting to feel your body tightening up. So, you must persevere, inshallah, and don't let the end of Ramadan be the end of your journey to get fit, inshallah.
Brilliant, beautiful advice. I think a lot of people can be pumped up, motivated to do something after Ramadan, because normally everyone takes a break in Ramadan. Yeah, so I think hopefully we're going to get people motivated to do more after this month, inshallah. Riaz, bro, you get the last say, bro. Your final words, man. What's going on? Give some advice to the peoples.
Practice your deen. Have faith in Allah. Have faith in His mercy. No matter what you do, always have faith in His mercy, because we'll only go to Jannah through His mercy. So have that faith, have that belief that you will go to Jannah through His mercy.
Brilliant. Jazakallah khair, bro. It was a pleasure having you on the show, man. It was a good show.
Thanks.
I enjoyed
that. I enjoyed it.
Beautiful.
Come on, show your guns.
We've seen them all.
Come on. Show us, come on.
No, bro, I'll show you when I can show you my stomach. That's the real test.
Inshallah.
Good stuff. On that note, inshallah, we'll be back tomorrow for the final show. We're going to have a sheikh on who's going to give us some final advice and reminders for this month, inshallah, and then how to prepare for Eid. Most people, everybody should be doing Eid at home. So it's going to be an interesting one again. Ramadan's been an interesting one, and so is Eid going to be an interesting one. So let's see how that goes tomorrow. So I'll catch you all back here tomorrow midnight, inshallah, for the last show for Newcastle Fast FM on the late show during Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.